Alright, so this is going to be the first video for the Principles of Tiling tutorials. But I am not sure at this moment how many videos there will be for this series. But there will be a playlist once a few more of these are set up. We're going to start out with the Crateria tiles. These are from Super Metroid. These tutorials basically are not structured around any one particular game in general. These tiles are from Super Metroid. They work in Game Maker. They can work in like Super Metroid level editor. These same principles can apply for Metroid Fusion or Metroid Zero Mission if you choose to hack those, or if you're just developing any sort of game really that's like a 2D platformer. This is gonna be helpful for you pretty much. If you're looking to do like RPG type games, I will probably do a second series of this with this first one, I guess, probably more towards the end once we finish covering this particular one with my Legend of Zelda engine. That will cover more of an RPG type system and tiling and stuff like that. But for now, this is where we're going to start out, since this is just the current project. So this tutorial basically will give you some guidelines and some suggestions, mainly for this particular tile set, since this is a pretty popular tile set for Super Metroid. And this will also work for just generally cavernous type tiles, caves, stuff like that. That's kind of popular in Metroid games and such. So we'll start looking at some of the basic mistakes that people tend to make. And that would be, let's see, most people that start out have a tendency to do stuff like this, which is just take and just plaster these tiles like this over everything, and that's wrong. And I'll turn these guidelines off for a minute so you can see what's going on. But basically, you want to avoid just long patches of flat land. It's a cavernous environment, so obviously you want to work with slopes. You want change of pace. So generally, you don't want to do more than 2 to 3, maybe 4 in some cases, straight tiles at once. You want some variation to that. So we'll clear these instances out and look at some more proper techniques. Obviously, like it might help if you got 2 or 3 different types of these. You change them up a little bit. It makes them look nice. See, that blends a lot better than the same one. It doesn't look so repetitive. So let's see, we'll do something like this. We're not going to draw an entire room. We're just going to show some basic tiling, and basically just demonstrate what looks nice, what's a good, idea of what you're doing, what you might want to do, just to demonstrate, some basic maneuvering, some stuff that generally, it looks good and doesn't look so created, I guess, is the main goal. Obviously, like, here we go. We got a decent setup. It moves around. You don't want it to become too repetitive, but you want it to become, different. You want it to change. Obviously, this isn't a large room, so we can't, get too large with things. But this is just an example. We're only going to generate, small little bits just to show what works and what's a good idea. Another thing people will do is, especially starting out with this particular tile set, is that they will leave these kind of blank spaces here, which you break up the flow of the room, and you don't want to break up the flow of the room. Or people will do stuff like this, where they'll insert these kind of things here and think that it kind of hides, and it doesn't really hide. It looks bad to the more experienced eye, I guess I should say. So this is where these come into play, and you put these wherever you're using slopes and stuff like that, and they keep the flow of the room going. You can see that already. That looks so much better. Generally, it depends on what you're doing, but these really they keep the flow of your room the way it should be. It keeps things looking right. So we'll clear these particular instances out. And we'll show some, even like these sharp edges here. These don't look too bad. Depending on what you're doing, you don't want to do like this. If you went and let's say you're gonna make a room, and you're doing this kind of thing, and you got your one slope here, and you got like all this garbage and whatever. That doesn't look natural. You don't want it to look square. Uh, if you look at Super Metroid itself in the Crateria area, you never notice that kind of thing going on. So you want to you want to make it look like a real cave. A real cave isn't square. It isn't. It doesn't look mined out. It doesn't look. It's just it flows. It's got a change of direction. It's unpredictable, but you want it to look natural, and that's the key point. So let's see. There's a ton of different things you can do. Like even going upwards, you could do. I'll do a demonstration of like an upward wall. You might want to do something like this, and it always helps to change directions a little bit. Go in and then go out, go in and go out, kind of thing. You don't have to move in a consistent pattern. You could go and do something like this, even, where you could go. You might want to go and move up a little bit, move over a little bit. Obviously, this isn't the ideal room to do this with, since it's a little bit more cramped. So there's not a whole lot we can do in that department. But let's see. The overall flow is an upward fashion, so you might want to go and do something like this and bump it out, bump it back in. Move it around a little bit. Uh, just keep the flow going, but don't make it seem so monotonous. And that's the key thing, is monotony will really break up a room quick. It'll just destroy a decent room and make it look terrible, and that's not what you want to do. So again, you're looking at this, and without these little kind of helpful corner braces, whatever you want to call them, it doesn't flow, and you want that outer purple rocky kind of edge to work with the room, and it keeps the flow going. It makes it look more natural. So another thing is with the background kind of thing that fills these up, and a lot of times what people do is they'll just take this one particular thing and they'll just fill this whole thing up. If this is their wall, they'll just keep filling this whole thing up with this, and it doesn't look right. But if you notice, when we do that, it does start to look like a real room. It does start to have depth, and that's what you want. If it starts to look natural, it doesn't look square. It looks like it should. So we're gonna clear some of this out, and we're not going to take and delete everything. This is a good point to work with here for what we're looking at. So basically, what I would usually do is, and a lot of people do things differently. Sometimes you can change it up, but I wouldn't go more than, say, maybe one layer of this around, and mix it up a little bit, something like that, and work with the next lightest type of thing, and kind of blend it in a little, make it not stand out so much, give it some some room here, and kind of pull it out, and then if I was gonna fill it from there, I would probably use something like this, because generally, if this, say, is the edge of your room right here, you're probably not going to see very much of that. But let's say in theory we could build another wall back behind here, and it could be another, we could go do something kind of simple like this, make another floor maybe, and just kind of, it's, if this is another room, say it's like a tunnel, and this is something that's going up, we're just looking at part of this. Generally, we could build this up, we would put our little braces in here to kind of get things flowing again, and obviously, and then we come back again, we fill this up, from this side, the same way we did with the last one, bring these in, and move the next one down, and give it some flow here, things moving, and I mean, it blends right in. There's a little bit of noise here, you can see, but you're not going to pay too much attention to it in the grand scheme of things. If you got a nice background, and when you got a wall like this, you could put maybe more of these in here. You could extend this out a little bit more. It all depends on what you're looking for and how much of this is really going to be seen, you know, what you're looking at a time. Your resolution, your views, and stuff like that are all going to go and, you know, impact this. So that's kind of just a basic look at what you're doing here, and that gives you an idea of a layer 1. If you'll notice, we got the same type of tiles basically back here, and well, these are more of a background tile, they're darker, and that's where these come into play too. If you've noticed, I've used these a few times by accident. These are, they continue off of that background, so what I'll show now is we'll take this wall, and we will add a layer. And if you've seen the darkness tutorial, I mentioned this before in case anybody doesn't know, with GameMaker in particular, the depth layer you want to move to an actually a larger number, and that will actually put you, you know, below this layer. So we want to make a layer below this layer, and this will draw everything we draw now to that. So by doing that, let's say we want to make, you know, another cave back here, and you know, we'll build like a little window here, kind of type of thing. You know, and these are like what you see in the landing site, where it's got, you know, like the cavernous in the background, where you can see through it at some points, and some points you can't. And it's kind of a cool little nifty little effect. It makes you feel like, you know, you're in a cave, but you can see through the cave at some points. Some people might have seen my Talon Canyon room, which makes really great use of this type of design, in the sense that it shows depth with the lighting, that allows it to look like, as if the light is peering in through some of these and over others, giving it a sense that some are in front of the others. And it looks really cool. It's a great idea. If you're gonna mess around it with great details with this type of tile set, if you really like this kind of thing, I would recommend something like that. I personally think it works really well, and there's a lot of opportunities with it. Um, so before the end of this video, I'll also show off a little bit more of what I got going on with Crateria tiles, and just some ideas of what can be done with them. So, that being said, we'll kind of layer these up like we did before. Oops. And give it its own little personality, kind of. Obviously, with this particular tile set on its own and its original usage, it's kind of dull, I guess you could say. It's dark, so you can't see too much with this background layer. But well, you know, if you notice, you know, you're tiling, and instead of having to, say, put these behind here, if you wanted to work from the same layer, that's when you would go back and you could use these. And this layering, basically the way I did this here, we could just keep putting more tiles behind this. It would do the same exact thing as what I'm about to do. But that's, you know, more for this particular usage. And if you were using something like Super Metroid Editor, you would want to go and do this all on one layer, because you would need, you know, the rest of it for your background. So that's where these other tiles come into play. And these are, oops, really nice, because if we replace that little type of thing here, wow, I'm bad today. There we go. And we can just, yeah, we kind of replace these with these darker ones, and it blends in perfectly. You know, obviously there's a little bit more variation you can use. So, you know, you just kind of want to blend these in, and layer 2 or layer 1, they all kind of fit together just right, and everything works out. And it creates that nice little shadowy layer here. So obviously, you know, it's basic, but it gives you an idea, and it looks right. It flows. It does what it's supposed to do. It looks natural, and there's not too much that you can say that's, you know, really wrong with it. Obviously, you could get, you know, much more intricate with a larger room. There's a lot more that can be done with this. But it's just to serve as a guideline for what works and what doesn't work, and what you should avoid, and what you might want to do, and what you might not want to do, and stuff like that. So it's kind of a big thing. for someone that's starting out. Obviously, this is, definitely more of like for beginners and people that don't know exactly what they're doing, or what's really wrong with what they're doing, or maybe not even realize some of these principles. It's a really good start to getting started with the whole atmosphere of things and tiling and such. So I will also show really quick. I got some of my Talon type graphics here that are somewhat incomplete at the moment. But just for a simple demonstration, we'll do some of these ones. We'll show them off, kind of. I mean, because there's a ton of variations you can do with different kinds of tiles and such, especially with the Crateria tiles. It's a really great tile set. For being an original tile set from, the 1994 Super Metroid, these have really great potential overall. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. If you repurpose these and you recolor them right, and you put some thought into it and some creativity, they can become something completely new. Like I've done here. With this mossy overlay and that, they can be really nice. I mean, these originally, when I started working with these tiles, they were simply just like these here. And then with time, it kind of evolved into this background layer, kind of the mossy kind of overlay, and it really adds to the atmosphere of the Talon overworld, which this seeks to replicate. Obviously, in my Talon Canyon room, there's like a phazon ore, and there's a little bit more. There's a little more detail to that room. It's got the kind of the hanging, the sapsack vines and stuff like that. But those tiles aren't actual tiles yet. That was actually a prototype room I did to kind of test this tile out and see how it would work. And overall, it was really impressive. So I like the way that came out, and I think a lot of people will really like that room too as time comes to pass. So obviously there's a huge contrast between these two, and we'll just show off. We'll go back to layer 2 ones really quick and demonstrate what I was saying earlier. Just fill in the blanks. And this will give a really good kind of a comparison on what can really be done and how great these tiles really can be if you put some thought and creativity in them, like a lot of people have. And even if you aren't the first one to come up with the idea, there's still a real lot of really great. Even these, like I said, they started out as a simple brown kind of tile set. They were real simple. They had some foliage and stuff with them, which was nice. But this is kind of grown. Obviously, this background didn't have this really nice emerald green to it when it started out, and it didn't have the moss. It didn't have, there's a lot of stuff that was absent from that. So, by bringing that here, it really adds kind of life to the tiles itself, which is cool because you get a different kind of feel for something that's old. So you kind of get two different audiences at once. You kind of get the old school kind of people that really like that classical kind of feel to it, and then you get the younger, newer people that like more creative stuff. But you can see there's a huge difference between these two as far as color and the way they stand out. They're the same exact tiles, they're the same set, they're the same everything. The only real difference between these two is simply the fact that these, some of them, they're, I don't know. I wouldn't say that any are really any better than the others. One just uses a little bit of a different palette, I guess, and it's a matter of taste, really. Some people prefer this original Crateria, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, obviously it's a really nice tile set. It works, but at the same time as it's still very practical and it still has a lot of great uses. If someone chooses to, put some thought into it and what they want to do and what they want to do with their game. So obviously, and then I'll even show it off really quick. Here's, this ice tile set too. So really there's a lot of different things that a person can do with the same tiles, and it's more than you would think, really, because the same principles overall really apply. So it's like once you get the hang of using these particular tiles, you can kind of use these with any variation, and the same kind of idea applies with any type of cavernous tile set. You know, you want to use the same type of flow, you want to use the same type of, variation and stuff like that. So once you get used to working with a particular one, or you just get the feel in general for, tiling and working with a certain ambiance of tiles, I guess you could say, you get kind of the feel for it, and things really work out, and you'll feel accomplished. You'll like the results you start seeing, and that's kind of the thing is you gotta. It's a lot of creativity more so than anything. There's guidelines and things that look right, but there's also things that are important to do just because that's it's about you really, and that's why just about everybody starts doing this. This is why I started doing this, because it's about what you want to do and what you want to see out of your game. So basically, this kind of shows there's a lot of different things you can do with a lot of different tiles, and obviously, they all look really good. There's a lot of different things you can do, and it can be really, you can get a whole lot of different environments out of the same tile set with different colors and different, changes. So, with that being said, we will call this a wrap for the first principles of tiling, and with the next video, we'll start looking at some more things you can do working with different types of tiles together, like this cavernous tile set. We can start working with, some Sector 2 tiles. We can start working with, some Metroid Fusion tile sets with some laboratory type stuff. And eventually, I'd like to get to like the Crashed Fragate room I did that combines like a Meridian Aqua type tile set with a Space Pirate Fragate tile set, and you can attain some really kind of cool different types of things there. So this should be a good starting point for anybody who's curious about how these tiles work in particular, and anybody that's really starting to just break into the art. Obviously, this isn't going to teach you everything you need to know, but this should give you some ideas of something to look at and something to model your own work after. That should kind of give you the right idea. So, with that being said, you might want to take a look at these, try on your own, mess around with your own tiles, and see what you come up with, because you'll probably be pretty impressed with what you can do with a little bit of practice and, the right advice. So, I will see you here at the next video on the next set of tiles, and have yourself a fun time and come up with some good work.